Hello, welcome to my studio and welcome to this video. Today I thought I would show you some paintings that I've finished and talk a little bit about them and how they started in my sketchbook, show you some of my recent sketchbook meanderings, and also I've selected two books from my art shelf, so I just thought I would share those art books with you and perhaps introduce you to some artists or reintroduce you or refamiliarise you with some artists. I've had lots of new folk watch my videos recently, which has been lovely. I am a full-time artist, and in these fortnightly videos I try to share a little bit of what I'm up to in my own art practice, some thoughts about art making, a little bit of art wisdom, some ideas, sometimes some practical processes. Really, my hope is I want to help or inspire or share insight to help you make art that feels good and exciting to you. So these are some paintings that I have finished, completed, finalised paintings. I started these paintings in January this year and it's now March, and I have deemed them complete and finished, and I've photographed them and I've put them on my website, so they are done. They are acrylic paintings on thick 350 GSM paper, and they are made up with lots of layers of paint and some pencil detail. But I also just wanted to show you my sketchbook from a few years ago, and this is one of the reasons why I think sketchbooks are so great. Let me just show you this sketchbook here. This is a sketchbook from 2021. The genesis of these paintings are within this sketchbook, but I wasn't looking at this sketchbook when I painted these paintings. So this sketchbook was on my shelf, I wasn't referring back to it, but these sorts of compositional ideas, things that I've worked through in my sketchbook, seep into my artist's language, and I often find that things that I've done in my sketchbooks just sort of appear in my paintings without me necessarily looking back. It's like I have created this muscle memory, and I find that really frequently things that I've done in my sketchbook from years ago sort of appear in my paintings without me being really conscious or cognizant of it. And it's like everything that I've created at some point just goes into my artistic filing cabinet. And it means that when I'm in the process of painting, there's something in my back pocket that I just kind of pull out without necessarily thinking I must look back at my sketchbook. And so, I mean, that's one of the reasons I just think sketchbooks are such a great thing. And shapes and motifs and colour combinations and line work and things that I've previously done sort of seep into my paintings without me necessarily being super aware of it. I often sit with a painting for quite a while before I declare it finished, and I often think it's really useful to have a bit of time and space around the painting, from finishing it to then sort of deciding that it is a finished painting. That little bit of objectivity. Does it feel how I want it to feel? And these paintings feel painterly. I love the fact that there's sort of brush marks and you can see the history of the painting within it. So I always think a painting needs to work up close when you're looking at it up close, but also when you're far away. So I often will take a painting and hold it up in a mirror, or take a photograph of it and look at it on my phone. Just that sort of distance and objectivity can help me see things in a painting that I possibly can't spot when I'm just looking at it. There's something that happens when you hold it in a mirror. You're looking at it a different way around and you can kind of see things. And I'm enjoying the kind of colour combinations and some of the details with some of the real sort of brush marks. And it's just interesting to me that, you know, I painted these in 2024 and there are sort of little clues in my sketchbook back from 2021, and it's just always so surprising to me that you know, things in my sketchbook can look just like things in paintings years on. And you know, I think that's why it's such a good practice. You see these sort of shapes, here they are. So the books that I've chosen to share today are from two completely different artists. One creates really precise, controlled, decorative artworks, and the other artist creates these kind of bold, brave, exuberant, expressive paintings. And it really made me think about why I'd selected those two books. It can be really useful when we are looking at other people's art or art books to kind of tune into what is it in their art that we are drawn to. It's a way to understand our own sensibilities and our own artistic preferences, I think. So when I chose these two books, it struck me that the artists were very different. But actually, both of the artists are doing something in their art that I want to do in my art. So I love my paintings when they have a bit of control and structure and possibly some obsessive detail and decoration, coupled with something wild and free and untamed and bold. So I think that all of my art, I'm trying to always grapple these two distinct sensibilities into something that feels cohesive. So I love that sense of kind of order and control and structure, but I also want a bit of, wild childness on the side. And I think the art that we're drawn to can help us to reflect on our own sort of art and sensibilities. And I've been thinking a lot about actually the things we often seek in our art are the things that we often seek in life, which I think makes perfect sense, as our art is a expression of who we are in the world, isn't it? And what I'm often looking for in my art is structure and discipline and control, coupled with something a little bit smudgy and smeary. And this is an artist called Angie Lewin, and the book is called Plants and Places, and it was published by Merrell. I think it was 2010, and it's a lovely exploration of her work. She is a printmaker, artist, illustrator who does these lovely compositions, often using weeds and plants and sort of ceramic pieces. She does a lot of block printing and lino cuts and collage. And here is a little collage that she's made of little offcuts and abandoned pieces. And here is Lewin saying, I use patterns from the inside of envelopes and other patterned papers. One of my favourite collages was creating using a small weathered piece of 1950s Formica that I found on a beach as the base for a collage of thin Japanese papers. This is the collage where she's using that found piece of weathered tabletop. And one of the things I really love about this book is you can see into her sketchbooks and how the work she does in her sketchbooks translates into the finished piece. And she does a lot of these sort of thumbnails where she is thinking through colour and different kind of compositions and perhaps different patterns and trying out a very similar idea but just with small different iterations, and then you can see how that has actually translated into the final thing. And here she is sort of working out this shape, this dark shape, which is inspired by a rock in the Scottish Highlands or Scottish Islands. And you can see how she's got lots of different kind of variations on it where she's sort of working it through with different patterns. And then this is how the final piece ended up. So it's just really interesting, and I love her use of colour and her use of pattern. She's using little motifs of found stones and rocks and feathers, and just a really interesting book. And again, this is her sketchbook work, and then this is the final piece. So it's an interesting look into her process and how she thinks in her sketchbook and uses her sketchbook to plan and develop. So lots of hedgerows, coasts, lots of walks. So yeah, it's a really, again, another sketchbook workings and the final piece. This is another favourite book of mine from my bookshelf. It is on the Scottish artist Barbara Ray, and it's not a new book, it's an older book from 2008. 8, I think, and it is published by Lund Humphries. There's an interview with her at the front talking a little bit about her process, and then a whole series of her abstract landscapes, prints. She uses lots of collage and monoprints and paint. And I particularly love, so some of these are quite sort of brooding and dark, but I particularly love her bright, colourful pieces. She just has this wonderful sort of freedom, I think, in the way that she paints, very loosely and abstractly, but they're still kind of complex and rich, and I just think her use of colour is magical. So she uses lots of collage. She often kind of collages pieces together, paints on top of the collage, collages on top of paint, mixes material. And I think she's a great artist to look at if you're interested in abstract landscapes or colour. Just really beautiful, rich, evocative pieces. I mean, look at that colour combination, just stunning. So there are several books on her. There's books on her sketchbooks, I think, and there's a book on her travels to the Arctic, which I think I've shown in a previous video. Yeah, really beautiful, inspiring, kind of loose and free and bold and brave paintings. So I just thought I'd give you a little look at what I'm up to in my sketchbook at the moment. So in the last video I showed you some ink drawings or paintings that I was doing, loosely based on a candlestick, and I've done as a pencil drawing, and then here I sort of took some of the shapes from those drawings and just used some wax crayons and had a real sort of play about. And then here I've started a drawing of another candlestick just with some pencil. And then a lot of the stuff that's in my sketchbook at the moment is just a sort of filing cabinet. I am in the process of designing a new still life class. So I'm just sort of moodling about and thinking what I will include in it. And so I'm kind of gathering things together, little examples and little studies and little bits and pieces, and starting that planning process. So I'm just piling stuff into my sketchbook as it's literally a filing cabinet, and going back through things and lots of pencil drawings, all sorts of things hiding in my sketchbook at the moment. And that was one of the ink drawings. So there we go, yeah, just a whole bunch of things that I need to try and pick up the threads and turn into something. Thank you so much for watching. You are very welcome here.